Hello there. Chaining or sticking yourself somewhere in public space, this will soon be a punishable offense in Great Britain. That's what Prime Minister Sunak's government wants and is following his conservative predecessors. So British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to give the police more powers in the fight against climate chaos. In the future, police officers should no longer wait for disturbances to occur. Rather, they should end the protests before chaos erupts. The British government wants to further tighten the right to demonstrate here. The police, as I said, should already be able to stop protests if they are expected to cause serious disruption to the public. That's what Downing Street announced on Monday night. We cannot allow protests to be carried out by a small minority that disrupts the life of the population, is what Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said. Specifically, it's about the fact that chaining or sticking as a form of protest should be prohibited with punishment in the future. According to the BBC, the project is primarily aimed at groups such as Extinction Rebellion or Just Stop Oil. They had repeatedly paralyzed traffic on the freeways or in central London with blockades. The police leadership backed the project. On the other hand, human rights activists and opposition criticized the plans. The government had already restricted the right to demonstrate last year and given the police more powers to break up protests. Since then, the police have also been able to restrict peaceful demonstrations more than before if, for example, they intimidate the public or cause severe discomfort because of noise or other reasons. Opposition MPs had already described the 2021 law after the first reading as an expression of the government's tendency towards authoritarianism. Home Secretary Priti Patel defended the bill at the time. We have seen significant changes in protest tactics in recent years, with demonstrators taking advantage of loopholes in the law that have led to disproportionate levels of disability. That's what the Conservative politician said. She was referring, among other things, to protests by Extinction Rebellion. And I'm not a friend of Extinction Rebellion either, I can tell you. And the right to strike should also be further restricted precisely because there are currently many strikes and this government only knows one measure, the big club. Tens of thousands of nurses in England will go on strike in February for the third time in as many months. This is increasing pressure on British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak over the crippling disruption to key services caused by the industrial dispute. The Royal College of Nursing, the RCN, said on Monday that its members in England and Wales will walk away from work for 12 hours each on February 6th and 7th if there's no progress in the wage negotiations with the government by the end of January. Instead of negotiating, Rishi Sunak has again opted for a strike, said RCN Secretary General Pat Cullen. My offer to the government to meet me halfway and start negotiations is still standing. They should take it. The new strikes follow nurses' walkouts in mid-December, the RCN's first national strike, and those planned for Wednesday and Thursday this week. The strikes come at a time when the state's National Health Service, the NHS, is under severe pressure, with millions of patients on waiting lists for hospital treatment and emergency departments unable to treat patients promptly. Ambulance workers have also started a strike over their wages. Hundreds of thousands of workers across Britain, from rail workers to postal workers to teachers, have been on strike since last summer, as wage increases fail to keep pace with the current double-digit inflation. According to the RCN, salaries for experienced nurses have been 20% lower in real terms than inflation since 2010, forcing many nurses to resign and contributing to a record vacancy rate in the NHS. Talks between government ministers and union leaders have so far not resulted in an end to the strike. The Department of Health had previously said the nurses' initial demands were for a 19% pay rise, prohibitive in the current economic climate from their point of view. The RCN then signaled a willingness to compromise on these demands. And also in England and Wales, teachers have also joined strikes by railway workers and carers for higher wages, as I said. The decision by the National Education Union, or NEU, which is neu, is new in German, has put increasing pressure on British Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak as well. The UK's largest education union, with around 500,000 members, justified the decision by saying that the government's offer to raise wages by 5% was far too low. In view of inflation of more than 10%, this is tantamount to a pay cut, argued Neu, and announced the first day of the strike for February 1st. Sorry, I just like the abbreviation. Work stoppages by around 100,000 public sector employees in administrations are already planned for the beginning of February. It could be the largest coordinated wave of strikes in decades. Because of the high inflation rate, workers in several industries are demanding significantly higher wages. The government has already said it cannot afford large wage increases. They warned that these would exacerbate inflation, but it doesn't get more correct when they repeat it. Education Minister Gillian Keegan expressed her disappointment at the NEU's vote in favor of the strike. Discussions are ongoing with union leaders, and any strike action by a union will be detrimental to the educational and the well-being of students, she said. In total, the teachers are to stop working for 7 days in February and March. In February, tens of thousands of nurses, as I said, also want to go on strike. And this all combined, the railway workers, the ambulance drivers, the postal workers, the teachers, the nurses. This is such a big strike you can't even really imagine. But this government is stubbornly just sticking to their point. They're not just even moving. It's not just that they say, no, we can't go to the high demands of the unions. They have made one proposal and they're sticking to it all the time. And we are talking about people that have lost money in their real wages in the last 12 years of this Tory government. And I often said it, I'm not a big friend of the unions, but sometimes a strike is necessary to just make a point. We're talking about this government a lot, and they try wherever there are issues. They try the same policy over and over again, and they fail. What they are doing with the unions at the moment is nothing else than what they are trying with the EU and the negotiations for years now. And has that worked? Nah. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.